Parshas Vayishlach. If you want to follow, it's on 170 and 171. And it begins miraculously. There's a miracle right at the beginning. Or it appears like one. It says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim Lifanav, and Yaakov sent angels in front of him, El Esav Achiv, to his brother Esav, Arza Sa'ir Sade Edom, who was in the land of Sa'ir, in the fields of Edom. Because we know from earlier that Yitzchak gave this to Esav. Now, the question is what does he mean by Yaakov sent Malachim? So we translate it usually as angels. But there are those who would translate it as messengers. In other words, what is a malach? A malach is a messenger of God. In other words, let's say God wants grass to grow. He wills it in his mind that grass should grow. So when you and I want something to happen, if you and I say, I want to pick up that rock, so your mind says pick up the rock and your body has to do it, right? So you can think something, but there's no physical action that comes from your thought. You have to cause yourself to do it, right? You have to actually do it. We understand, to put it sort of in plain terms, that when God thinks something, it happens. He doesn't have to think and then do, because God's thoughts are actions. But the vehicle that we use to pick up the rock is our body, like our arm, right? What vehicle does God use? What do we call that vehicle, so to speak, that he uses to cause the grass to grow? When it says that he wants grass to grow, and it happens. So that the vehicle, so to speak, is called a malach, an angel. And it was the will of God manifest to do something. So the will of God is this grass will grow. So the angel, the Gemara says, will pull it up. That is to say that the will of God creates a thing called an angel. So it's a messenger. Right? It takes the thought of God and it causes an action. Just not much different in a sense than we get we want to do something, and I can get someone to do it for me. I say, I'd like to have this letter delivered to this person, and I give it to somebody, and he does it. So he's my messenger. In a sense, he's like my malach, because he's doing what I ask him to do. So some of the commentators tell you that Yaakov had sent at this point messengers. He took some of his people from his entourage, and he sent them to see his brother. But yet Rashi doesn't agree with this. And Rashi, in the first Rashi here, he says, Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim. And Yaakov sent angels, mamish. Malachim mamish, meaning literally he sent angels. In other words, he sent these beings that fulfill the will of God. Yaakov was at such a level, a spiritual level, that he was so close to God, and he had emulated God so much that he started to have the ability to accomplish godly-like things. The closer you are to God, the more God and you can accomplish things. God will do your will. Because if your will is God's will, God will make his will your will. So if Yaakov wants that messengers to be sent to Esav, he can send an angel. So he sends angels. So according to Rashi, he sends angels. But there are some problems with this. One of the problems is that in general we have a concept that a person should not rely on a miracle unless it's a necessity, right? If something horrible is about to happen to somebody, they're about to have a car crash, and they actually, I remember one time this, and it actually worked out, which is driving my car once, and it was very bad weather, it was icy, and I had to make a right turn. And I was going too fast, so I tried to slow down to make the right turn, but it hit ice. I just kept going right past the right turn, and if I would continue, I would hit a car, right? And just at the last second, my tires grabbed, and I was able to turn. But there was, in my mind, that was it. Like, I actually saw this happening. I'm saying to myself, God, make this not happen. Right? Because there's no other way for this not to happen at this point than a miracle. Because I'm going too fast, I'm not going to make the turn, I'm going to hit this car. Right? And then I didn't hit the car. So the idea was you're not supposed to rely on a miracle unless you have to. Otherwise, you should do things naturally. And there's a number of reasons for it. And one of them is that we have merit. God gives us merit. When we do good things, we have merit. We get reward for that. And based on that, when God does something to change nature, it uses a little bit of our merit because he's doing it for us. Right? Now, there's nothing wrong with God doing something for us. He only does it if it's the right thing to do, if it's just, if it's correct. but he does. And for us to influence that to happen means that we're using our merit that would be given to us really in the world to come, right, in a much more intense way. We're using it here. Right? So therefore, why doesn't Yaakov just send people? Rashi says he sends angels. Well, what for? He's got people. Just send 2 people. Right? Why does he need to rely on angels, on a miracle, which will then have sort of a negative effect on him? So from this question causes us to understand a very important thing about Jewish life, and as it's seen through the actions of Yaakov, is that we have something in the world that we call nature. Nature really means that if something continually happens, so it's our understanding that God put that into nature, and he wants it to happen. God created the sun and the moon, and every day the sun will rise, and every day the sun will set, and every day the moon will rise, right? That happens. Every day you wake up, you breathe, and oxygen enters your lungs, right? That happens every single day. So we have an understanding as people that if something happens every day, it's not a miracle. It just happens every day. A miracle would be that I fall in the water and I can breathe. That's a miracle. But the fact that I can get up in the morning and breathe oxygen and I can live because of it, that's not a miracle because it happens all the time. But the truth is, in our belief, is that something that happens all the time is still considered a miracle. It's still something to appreciate, even though it happens all the time. Even though the sun will rise every day, and I can give you a calendar that shows you what time the sun will rise, 45 Wednesdays from now, it'll tell you exactly at the second what time the sun will rise here. But because we know it'll happen doesn't mean it's not miraculous. For us, what we're doing is we're saying that something that happens regularly, that's nature. It just happens regularly, and therefore we don't have the same appreciation. But like for instance, when Joshua went to war, and he was in the war, and it was getting to be Shabbos. Now at this point in the war, right, we understood that he could have stopped because of Shabbos, stopped fighting, and still would have been safe. But he wanted to continue to finish the job he was given, which was to conquer this land. So he prayed, and Hashem made the sun stop, so it didn't set. And since it was Friday, Shabbos didn't begin, right? Because Shabbos begins at sunset. So he asked God to perform a miracle in order so that he could accomplish that. And you say, well, the fact that the sun rises and sets, that happens every day. But the fact that it doesn't set one day, that's a miracle, right? We all understand that. What Yaakov is teaching us is that we have to have the same appreciation for something that happens every day as if it only happened once. The same way that we know that there's a miracle when it's light at night, or when it's somebody you should, all right ways and means, you should have a car accident and you don't, and we say that's a miracle. And when we say that the sun rises, or it's cold in the winter, or it's hot in the summer, or if you go indoors in the winter you'll warm up, right? Just because that we know that will happen does not mean it's not miraculous, meaning that it isn't God's hand involved with it. It just happens every day or all the time. But God is as much involved with the fact that the sun rises every day as he is with the fact that he causes it not to rise one day. It's the same thing. And Yaakov understood that doing something that appears to be natural is as miraculous as doing something that is not natural. There's a Gemara that says, and it's a story in the Talmud, it talks about this one rabbi who was very, very poor. And it says that his daughter came to him, and it was Friday afternoon. They didn't have any oil for Shabbos candles, and they had no money to buy it. So he says to her, go into the kitchen and get vinegar. There's vinegar in the kitchen. Let's go get vinegar and put it in your bulbs for candles and light the vinegar. Now you and I all know the vinegar doesn't burn, right? It might not taste so good, but it doesn't burn. And they did it, and it lit. It burns. And the daughter said to her father, this is vinegar. This is not oil. I know we're poor, but we're not stupid. Vinegar is not going to burn. So his answer was, he who commands oil to burn can command vinegar to burn. Right? The same God who makes oil burn can make vinegar burn. Just because you think that oil burns, and you know that if you put a wick in oil and you light it, it'll burn, that's as much a miracle as vinegar burning. It's just you're used to it. So in his mind, he saw it all the same. He was on a spiritual level that he saw nature and miracles, all as miracles. And that's what Yaakov's message is to us. Yaakov could have sent people, and he could have sent angels. For whatever reason, he chose angels to be what he wanted to send. But his message to us is that if he had sent people or he had sent angels, all of them are just as miraculous. The fact that a human being could accomplish this goal is as much a miracle as if an angel accomplished the goal, even though we all expect a human being can do it. Nevertheless, that's what he's teaching us. So when we would normally say, Yaakov, why are you sending angels? Send people. Why use up your merit by having God do a miracle for you, that you can send an angel, right, which is miraculous? He's saying, what are you talking about? When when I go and send a human being, that's also miraculous. When I talk to Asaph, that's miraculous. When I breathe, that's miraculous. Just as miraculous as my sending angels. So in that case, he would not be using his merit, because everything he does is miraculous. Everything in Yaakov's life, he saw it that way, and which is important for us to understand. Anything in our lives that we do often, we get used to. Like I say, and how my wife will say to me, okay, listen, do me a favor, clean out the dishwasher. Okay, empty out the dishwasher. Next day she says, do me a favor, empty out the dishwasher. Okay. Next day she says it again. I know if I do it that third time, it's no longer doing her a favor. Now it's my job. Right? I have to do it every day. Right? And if I don't do it, why didn't you empty the dishwasher? What do you mean? You didn't ask me to empty it. I have to ask you to empty it. Right? The point is that, and a person does something regularly, right? You're used to it, right? You don't think about the fact that somebody in your life, is there every day, right? Because they're there every day. We don't think about it. We don't think about our children being like that, our spouses being like that. Because they're there every day, we get used to it. Just like we get used to miracles that happen every day, we call that nature, we get used to people, right? In the same way. We get used to everything in the same way. And Yaakov is telling us, just like the man who says, he who commands oil to burn can command vinegar to burn, is a person who realizes that nothing should be expected. Everything is miraculous. The fact that when we go home, there could be somebody there waiting for us, or there's somebody who calls us, or somebody in our family who cares about us. That's as miraculous as if we were all by ourselves and suddenly we found a long-lost relative. It's the exact same idea. And that's what Yaakov's message is here when he does this. So then it says, of course, that the angels go out, and he tells them the following. I want you to say the following to my brother when you go to see him. So it says, Komar Abdacha Yaakov. The angels are going to tell Asaph, your servant Yaakov, says the following. Im Lavan Garti, I lived with Lavan. V'acharata, and I stayed with him for a long period of time until this moment. Vayihili shor v'chomor tzon v'eved v'shivcha v'yeshlocha lahagi li'adoni u'limsochem v'enecha. And he says, that Yaakov says to him, I lived with Lavan for a long time. And while I was there, I acquired lots of animals, oxen and donkeys and sheep, and I got servants, and I got maidservants, and I'm sending these gifts, not everything he said, but gifts to you, so that you should receive me in a friendly way, right? Because Yaakov understood that Asaph wants to kill him. Asaph wanted to destroy him. He had many reasons that he wanted to. They were all foolish reasons, so to speak. They were really fabricated reasons, but he wanted to do that. So he sent that. He sent them and to tell him this, right? And so the angels go and they do it and they come back. Vayeshuv HaMelachim, we're on the last line on 171. And the angels returned El Yaakov to Jacob. Leimor, Banu El Achicha, we went to see your brother. El Asaph, we went to see Asaph. V'gam holech v'krasecha v'arba mos ishimo. He's coming to see you, and he's bringing 400 men with him. 400 men with him. He's bringing an army, right? So it's already a problem, right? Because Asaph's coming, he's bringing an army, right? Asaph, we already know, Asaph wants to kill you. So if we changed his mind by bribing him, and which is what they did, Yaakov sent them with gifts to bribe him. Right? We don't think it helped, because he's coming and he's bringing an army with him. He's going to wipe us out. And there's an interesting terminology here. It says, Banu el achicha, we went to your brother El Asaph, to Asaph. We know that Yaakov only had one brother, right? That was Asaph. So they either say we went to Asaph, or we say we went to your brother. We even say we went to your brother Asaph, right? Which is also superfluous. But here it's we went to your brother, We went to Esau. Right there. And what's all of these words in there for? Just say, we went to see Esau. We went to see your brother. You sent us to see him. So what I got to tell you, we went to see Esau and we went to see your brother. It's two different people? No, it's the same person. So here the rabbis are telling us that there's a message in their words, and there's a message because this phrase repeats often, is that Esau is two people. He's one person literally, but he's like two people. On the one hand, he's your brother. And a brother has an affection for another brother. No matter what happens, brothers can talk to each other, they can fight with each other their whole lives. But it's extremely rare that you'll find a brother, two brothers, or two close relatives, who that no matter what happens, will not feel something. And no matter what happens to my brother, so to speak, if I don't like him, I don't get along with him, I fight with him all the time, if something happens, it's going to at least make me feel bad for him, even if I don't like him. So that's what it says, that we went to see Esau, your brother. We went to appeal to your brother, not to kill you. He's your brother. Right? And we also went to Esau. Now, Esau is not your brother. Right? And Esau is this fierce general who wants to conquer the world and destroy you. So he's of two things. So we went to appeal to him as your brother, but we also went to see Esau, and he's coming with 400 men. So they're reminding Jacob of the dichotomy in the personality of Esau. On the one hand, Esau often acts in a very compassionate way to Yaakov. On the other hand, our understanding is that he wants to kill him. So both of them are true, and that's what they're hinting at when they use these words in such a way.
So different personalities.
Well, yeah, they're not like a sick person with two personalities.
No,
right?
no.
It means that, like all of us, Esau is complicated, just like we are. Now, you could have people who will say that you or anyone is not nice, and other people say that you're the nicest person in the world, and you don't know why either one says what they say. But it's just because people perceive us in different situations, in different ways, with their own baggage, and therefore the reality is we're all very complicated. So one day I may appear to be difficult, and one day I may appear to be very kind. And it depends when you see me, you may think me one way or another. So that's really what it means with Esau. So then it says that Yaakov became very afraid, right? Because Esau's coming with an army. V'yatzer lo, right? And it bothered him. And he took all of the people that were with him and all of the animals and everything that he had, and he made them into two camps. In other words, instead of everyone being together, he separated people into two camps. The idea being, if Esau attacks us with a surprise attack, he's going to get one, but the other one will live. Right? So he won't be able to destroy all of us. So at least if he sneaks up on us, he can only get one. So he makes them into two groups. V'yomar, and he says, Im yavo Esau, if Esau will come, elam machane echas, to one of the camps, and he attacks it. The one that's not attacked will remain, as I just said. V'yomar Yaakov, Elohei Avi Avraham, Elohei Avi Yitzchak, Hashem ha'omer alai, shuv li'artzecha l'vodatecha v'yetiva imach. And so here he says that God, right, God of my father Abraham and my father Isaac, right, he said to me, go back to your land, the land of Israel, right, and he says, and to your relatives, and I'll do good for you. Right? That's what he says. So now Yaakov, at this point, you would think Yaakov is speaking sarcastically. God says to him, go back to your land of your parents, right, and I'll do good for you. So that's not happening. He's going back to the land of his parents. He's afraid he's going to be murdered, and all his family is going to be murdered, and his brother's going to steal all his things. So what does God mean? That is, I'm going to be good to you. Right? Go back and I'll be good to you. So, and Yaakov says it here. So one would think that this is Yaakov giving a commentary on the situation and saying, oh yeah, God says he's going to take care of me. Right? He took care of me, all right. Esau's going to kill me now. Right, but that's not what he says. Because if you look at the next line, he then says, "V'katonti mikol chasadim u'mikol emes asher asisa es avdecha ki b'mikli avarti es hayarden," and so forth. He says, the beginning, "Katonti mikol chasadim," and I have been made small by all of the kindnesses and all of the truth which God did for me. That is to say, he's not saying this sarcastically. When God, he says, I'm separating the groups, and if Esau attacks one, the other one will live. And then he says, and God promised me, if I'm going to go back to the land of Israel, he's going to make things good for me. And my experience with God is such that I am humbled. I feel small next to God because of all the good things He's done for me. He's done it, and I don't deserve it. I feel that I don't deserve it. He's done all these great things for me. So some of the commentaries tell us that what He's doing here is He's not complaining at all. He's saying that even in a situation where it appears that I'm about to be killed, right? And that's what it looks like. Here he is. His brother is bringing an army. His brother is a murderer, and his brother is a tough guy, and his brother is bringing a whole army of people like this, and the whole goal, of course, is going to kill me, because I already know that he wants to kill me. So that Yaakov would then say, well, God, you told me you take care of me. What are you doing? But instead he says, God, you're so kind to me. You do so much for me. I don't even deserve it. So the point is, why is he saying that here? Because Yaakov understands that when it comes to deserving something in this world, we don't deserve anything. Well, like, just because we were born doesn't mean that God owes us something. He doesn't owe us something. He says, and whatever God gives us in our life is more than we deserve. For instance, if God creates us, and then God says to us, I want you to have a good life. I want you to have a life of pleasure. Right? That your life should really be a good life. All I ask from you, so that I can give you this good life, is follow these commandments. Just follow them. And the fact is, we all know that we all break them. Some of us break them on purpose, some by mistake, some a lot, some a little, but we all break them. Right? Even if we try real hard, there are times when we aren't doing what we're supposed to do. And nevertheless, He doesn't kill us. He doesn't take away the goodness He does. He still we could go and do the opposite of what God wants, and we don't die, right? Because you think that if you don't do what He wants, that you should die. You don't lose all of the good things you have. You still are making a living. You still have money. You still have health. So the point is that God does these things for us, and we learn this even though we don't deserve it. And that's because He is the God of Abraham and He's the God of Isaac. That's why Jacob says it this way. Because Abraham and Isaac were such people that no matter what happened in the world around them, they always stayed close to God. They dedicated their life to what He wanted. They reached out to people. That's how they spent their entire life. And because they did this, all of their children receive a reward, even if we don't deserve it. So that's what Jacob was acknowledging. That God does all of this good, not because of me, because of my fathers. And my fathers were so good that God's taking care of me, even though I don't deserve it. And that's how we have to look at it as well. That God does take care of us, and God does do things for us, and He wants to do things for us. But it's not because we deserve it. It's because He loves us, because He cares for us. Just like you with a child. You have a child, and you tell the child, you need to clean up your room. And they don't clean up their room. It's hard to punish them. You do it, but it's hard. You don't punish them because you're angry, like in a court of law. You don't punish them because you don't care. You punish them because, as much as it hurts you, you punish them because it helps them learn. Right? But it's very hard for us to do that. That's God's relationship with us. When God tells us, I want you to do certain things, and we don't do it, He doesn't take away all of the stuff He does for us. He still does it because He loves us. Sometimes He has to do things that are harsh in order to educate us. But in general, it's really that He cares for us anyway. So that's what Yaakov is saying. And he's saying it's because of my fathers. And that's why it comes across in this way. So now we're going to come across a very interesting part of the entire Torah. It begins on the 14th, number 14 here on 173 or 72. And it says that Yaakov spent the night in this place. And then he took from that which he had come in his hand a tribute to Esau his brother. So now he takes from his own belongings a gift he's going to send to Esau. 200 she-goats, 20 he-goats, 200 ewes, and 20 rams, 30 nursing camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 she-donkeys and 10 he-donkeys. He put in his servants' charge each drove separately, and said to his servants, pass on ahead of me and leave a space between drove and drove. He instructed the first one, saying, when my brother Esau meets you and asks you, saying, whose are you, where are you going, and whose are these that are before you, you shall say, your servant Jacob. It's a tribute sent to my lord to Esau, and behold, he himself is behind us. So here we learn an important thing. The Gemara tells us that the rabbis have a history throughout Jewish history, that when they had to be involved with the government, when the government, and remember, the government throughout history has not been like our government. Our government here is really a very kind government that encourages us to be Jewish. Right? It really does. It really encourages us. While many other governments in history persecuted us because we were Jewish. And when a religious leader, a Jew in Poland, in Russia, in Babylon, depending where you are in history, got called by the government, you didn't expect to come back. You expected they were going to kill you or lock you up forever. You deserved it or not. Because Jews didn't have rights. Jews didn't have the ability to defend themselves. They were at the whim of the monarch, whoever that was. And that's how history always was. So therefore, the rabbis would say that when they had to interact with the government for any reason, they'd look at this parsha, and they'd say, how did Yaakov interact with Esav? Because Esav represents to us the world we live in. This is a physical world. So if Yaakov does something in order to get Esav to treat him fairly, not even do something special, just to treat him normally, so then we should learn from that. So here we learn an important point, that before Yaakov went to meet his brother, he's afraid his brother's going to be upset with him because of all of the reasons he says, and that he's going to want to kill him, which he said he wants to do. And he's bringing an army in order to do it. And in all the way of the world, he probably would accomplish it and kill Yaakov and all of his people. So Yaakov has to come up with, how am I going to deal with this? So he sends these people up ahead with all of these gifts. And when he goes to Esav, he says, your servant Yaakov, not your brother Yaakov, but your servant. Because in this world that we're in, Esav is the king, and we can be related to him, but he's the king, and therefore we're like a servant. Has sent all of these things to you, and he's coming behind us. The idea being is that Esav would get all of these gifts, would see my brother cares about me, my brother wants me to have these, my brother perhaps is even frightened of me, and he's giving me this, in order so that I shouldn't act out and hurt him. Right? So from there we learned that this is one of the ways that the rabbis dealt with the governments. In other words, you don't start up with the governments. You don't protest the governments. You don't fight the governments. They say, okay, they say they want you to hop, you hop. Right? Because you have to, and when they call you in, very often all they want is money. They can say that they want all kinds of things, but what they really want is money. And that's what we see here. That Yaakov is being told, Esav wants to kill you, so Yaakov's saying probably what he really wants is money. He doesn't really want to kill me. What good is that to him? So I'm going to send him all of these things, and I'm going to speak of myself as being below him, and we'll see what happens. So that's what goes on here. So now, it says that he got up that night, he took his 2 wives, his 2 handmaids, his 11 sons, and he crossed the ford of the Jabbok. And then he took them and had them cross over the stream. He sent over his possessions. So now Yaakov has done is he's taking the 2 camps that he had, puts them together, he sends them to the other side of a river. And his feeling is that if Esav comes, he wants me. So he'll attack me and he'll go on his way. He'll kill me, but my family will live. Right? So then it says that the Gemara says that when he was over, now they're all on the other side of the river. Now Yaakov comes back. Now everyone asks, why does he come back? Because if he's on the other side of the river, he's further away from his brothers. It's more safe for him. The brother has to cross the river. He can't sneak up on him. You can see somebody crossing the river. So he comes back. So it says that he came back for these little pots. That Yaakov, he amassed wealth. And that when you imagine, here he is, he's running away from his brother. He devises a plan that we're going to hide my family. So we all go to hide, and then he realizes, oh my gosh, I left my Tupperware behind. And he goes back to get his Tupperware, and you say like, well, are you crazy? You're going to go back here, get the Tupperware, and Esau's going to show up and kill you, right? Now, but if you stay here, forget your Tupperware, you'll be alive. You'll have to buy new Tupperware. Like, why are you doing this? And so the Gemara says, from this we know that by the righteous people, that often their belongings are more important to them than their life. So that sounds horrible. That a righteous person feels that his money is more important than his life. I mean, it's like Jack Benny. Remember Jack Benny? They have a story one time. A guy comes up to him and says, put the gun in his ribs and says, "Give me your money or your life." And he doesn't say anything. And the guy says, "Didn't you hear me? You're deaf. Give me your money or your life." He says, "Hold on, I'm thinking about it." Like, which is more important, my money or my life? So we think it's funny because it's ridiculous. Of course, who would think that? But here Yaakov puts himself in danger to get this Tupperware, and that's all it was. It was like these little cheap pots. that there's no reason for him to do that. But the answer is that we have to understand that no question our belongings are not more important than our life. That's not the message. But we have to realize that whatever God gives us, He gives us for a purpose. And we can't waste it. We can't ruin it. We can't destroy it. We can't ignore it. And therefore, whatever God gives us, He gives us because we deserve this and we need it. How is that? Sometimes we need something. Sometimes you'll ask, everything seems to be going great, and then something bad happens. You say, why did this happen? Really, at a theological level, right? I'm not talking about physical world, but in the theological level, through the eyes of God, why did this bad thing happen to me? And the reason it happened to you is because God has decided that you need this to happen to you, so that you should deal with the situation and come out better. Right? I say it all the time, that I pray that nobody should get cancer. Nobody should get cancer. But I don't know anybody who had cancer and survived that isn't a better person. Everybody that I know who's gone through it, no matter how small it was or how big it was, if they survived, they're better people. It's always the case that when somebody goes through a life-threatening situation, it causes them to realize you can't take life for granted. Life is a gift. You can't take your health for granted. It's a gift. And very often, until we come to the realization that really can happen, we really can die. We're not immortal. We really can get sick. It's not just somebody else it happens to. It happens to us. When we have to come to that realization, right, that these types of things can happen, that our lives are a gift and so forth, we can thereby understand that everything that God gives us, a test or not a test, is for our good. He's doing it to make us better. We don't always see it. When a person gets cancer, they clearly do not see that God is trying to do something good for them. They think they're going to die. And they might. But they may not. And if and there are answers in any way. But certainly nobody wishes anyone to have this test. But when they do, and the people who survive, and they become better people, then you can't tell me that it was all bad. It wasn't all bad. They lived, and they're better people. Right? So, that makes a big difference.
But Rabbi, wouldn't it make more sense if, only bad people, let's say, had cancer?
Sure. But it's not possible that only bad people can be punished. Because, first thing, that's very complicated. We don't know who's bad and who's not bad. Secondly, everybody does die, and you die from something. Nobody just lives forever. And certainly, there are good people who need inspiration to become better people. There are good people who could be great people, and they need to be pushed. I can't tell you who they are, and I can't tell you who would deserve something, or who would gain, or who gets it and will live, and who gets it and won't live. I have no idea, but God knows. And God knows that this person X has the potential to be the greatest something in the world, and they're not using their potential. And if I take away, let's say the greatest artist, and I give them a threat that they're going to get sick one day and lose their eyesight, and they won't be an artist anymore, right? At all. So then what happens, they go through this whole process and they're cured. Now when they see, they're going to be so much more appreciative of it that they're going to make use of it, that they'll become a great artist. Right? I'm simplifying, but that's the idea. All right, so now Yaakov comes back. And here we have this famous story of Yaakov struggling with an angel, beginning on the last line on 175. It says, V'yarki lo yochalo. It says, let's start at the beginning. V'vaser Yaakov levado. Yaakov was alone. And then it says, a man wrestled with him until the break of dawn. So here's the thing. Yaakov is all by himself because he went back to get these little pieces of Tupperware to take back over. And as he goes over, he's attacked. And he's attacked by a man. That's all we know so far. And this man starts wrestling with him in the middle of the night. And he wrestles with him until the sun rises. That's all we've read so far. Then, when he perceived that he could not overcome him, when this man who attacks Yaakov realizes that Yaakov is so strong, I can't beat him. I'm not going to win. He struck the socket of his hip. He hits him in a spot on his hip, so that Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestles with him. So it gives him a dirty punch, right? And he's wrestling with him, and he does a dirty move. And he makes it so that it says that Yaakov's hip is dislocated. Now, the Torah often speaks in purposely in ambiguous words. In other words, whenever the Torah speaks about anything that has a connotation of sexuality or gender, it will often use general words. Like when Abraham tells Eliezer, his servant, I want you to find a bride for my son Isaac, Yitzchak, I want you to take an oath. I want you to swear that you're going to find a girl from these people. You're not going to switch her on me. So he says, okay. He says, well, come and take the oath. He says, put your hand under my thigh and swear to God that you'll do what I said. So what does that mean, put your hand under my thigh? Like, what is that? Like today, they put your hand in a Bible, right? Well, put your hand under my thigh. Well, that's not what it means. Because the Torah is using that word because really he's saying, put your hand on the place where I was circumcised. Because the place where I'm circumcised is where I have a sign from God. Right? In other words, swear to God. That's what he's saying to them. Swear to God by putting your hand on the spot of my body that has been changed because of my relationship with God. So the Torah doesn't want to say that. Doesn't want to say that and use that word because it doesn't have to. So it says under my thigh. We understand what it means. So here also there are some people that say that he didn't really dislocate his thigh. He actually hit him in his reproductive organ in order to say, I can't kill you, but I'll get your children, right, in the future. Remember, right now we think this is a man he's wrestling with, but we very soon find out he's an angel. And when we read the next paragraph, and that he's the angel of Esau. In other words, instead of Esau is still far away, but he has a guardian angel. Right? Every nation of the world has a guardian angel that remember, an angel is the will of God, so it's directing the will of God towards that nation. So Esau has one. In this case, the angel is symbolically telling us history of the world. The history of the world is that the Jewish people and the nations of the world are going to be struggling for a long, long time. And in the end, we're going to win. Right? The angel sees he can't beat Jacob, so he strikes him in a dirty way. Right? He strikes him badly. Those who say that he touched him in his reproductive organ means, all right, I'm not going to be able to destroy the Jewish people. That's who Yaakov is. But some of your people are going to be weak. All right? Because he takes them where he has children. Some of your children will be weak. I'll get them. And that's happened throughout history, of course, where many Jews have been destroyed by the church and other governments and so forth, representative of this. That's those people who understand it that way. Others do take it at face value that he actually attacked his sciatic nerve. And sciatic nerve is the largest nerve in our body. It goes up the back of our thigh. And it's also in animals. And so it'll tell us later that because of this, because he attacked his sciatic nerve, which cost him the limp, symbolic of the fact that I will injure you, although I can't destroy you, is that he, at the end, after he hits him in the sciatic nerve, he's giving him that message, and then Yaakov walks away. Right? So he has an injury there. And that's why today it'll tell us that in an animal, you're not allowed to eat that part of the animal in remembrance of this. But it's symbolic, again, of the struggle. Right? It says that they struggled throughout the night until the sun rose. That's symbolic of the night being like the galut, the diaspora that we're in. And it's a struggle for all these thousands of years of the Jewish people with the nations of the world. And, everything from pogroms to Holocaust and so forth, until we get to a point where finally the sun rises, the Messianic era appears, and we're hurt by what went on, but we live and we bring the world to completion. So we'll see how that happens. So he says, right, he struck the socket of his hip, so Jacob's hip socket was dislocated as he wrestled with him, and then he said, let me go, the dawn has broken. So now the angel, right, who now Yaakov realizes is not a man. Because what does a man care if it's day or night? If I'm wrestling you, I'm wrestling you. So he says, no, it's morning. He said, I'm not going to let you go unless you bless me. So Yaakov's got him like in a full Nelson. He can't get away. And he says, I'm not going to let you go until you bless me. So he says to him, what's your name? So Jacob says, my name's Jacob. So he says, no longer will it be said that your name is Jacob, but Yisrael. For you have striven with divine and with man and have overcome. And he says, your name's not going to be Jacob anymore. It's now Yisrael. Right? And that's because you have struggled with God and man. What does it mean with an angel and with man? You've struggled with people, you've struggled with angels, and you've won. That's what it's simply saying. But there's many problems with this. Like, first thing is, he says to him, let me go because the dawn is broken. All right, so we know he's an angel. An angel, when it's daylight, he has to praise God. An angel is supposed to praise God when the sun rises. So he has to go do that. So he says, I'm not going to let you go do your job until you bless me. Now he's stuck because the angel has no free will. He can't choose to not go. He has to go. Right? That's how angels are. They're not human beings. God says, I need angels have to bless me, have to sing to me at this time of day. He's got to do it. But he can't do it because he's stuck. So he's got to do it. He's over a barrel. He's got to do what Jacob wants. So Jacob says, I want you to bless me. So he says, what's your name? And he says, Jacob. Right? And then he says the thing, your name is Jacob. So it's very strange. He says, I want you to bless me. So he says, what's your name? Right? What does that have to do with anything? Right? And he tells him his name's Jacob. He says, no, your name's not Jacob. Right? Then what happens is that Jacob now, he tells Jacob, your name's going to be Israel. So Jacob says back to him, okay, what's your name? You asked me my name, you tell me your name. And he says, why do you ask my name? And he blesses him. Right? That's the end of the story. He doesn't tell him his name. He doesn't answer, right? He says, tell me your name. He doesn't answer. He says, why do you want to know my name? And then it's over. So the commentaries tell us a very interesting thing, that he actually told him his name. And it actually tells us here what it is. That the idea is that this angel is not a normative angel that we're used to, because our idea of an angel is something that does good things. But it's also not true, right? We know that angel fulfilled the will of God to destroy Sodom. We know that an angel thing called the angel of death is the will of God when somebody should die. So here you have an angel, and this angel, right, is representative of of evil. He's the angel of Esau. He's representative of the Yetzer Hara, of this little animal inside of us that wants what it wants now. Right? That's what we call the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara literally means the evil advice. That means inside of your mind, you have different things. Anytime you want something, you say, "Oh, I shouldn't eat it. Yes, I should eat it. I don't know, I shouldn't eat it, but I want it. I shouldn't eat it, but it tastes good." Right? Those two voices. You have what you call the Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination. Right? What you'd say is your ego or your id, actually, inside your mind. And then you have the Yetzer Tov, which is your conscience telling you to do what's right. Right? So it's a struggle. That's called free will. Every time we have a choice, our mind is telling us two ways. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Do I do what I want now? Right? I'm hungry. I want to eat now, or I have to have discipline. The desire to want to eat now, to want to have sex now, to want to feel good now, that's what we call the little animal inside of you. Because animals want what they want now. That's the symbol of the Yetzer Hara. Of inside of us, we have this challenge, right? This angel is the physical symbol of that Yetzer Hara, and Yaakov is the symbol of the goodness, and they're struggling. So Yaakov says to him, "I'm not going to let you go until you tell me your name." So he says back to him, "Why do you ask my name?" Right? That's his answer, because a Yetzer Hara is that it's a challenge to our religion, a challenge to your belief, a challenge to doing what's right, and that it changes. It's not the same. The challenge for Jews 200 years ago was not like the challenge for Jews today. The challenge in 1930 was different than today. The challenge for a Jew during the Holocaust was different than today. The challenge for every one of us is different every day. For instance, let's not even talk on a global sense, talk on a personal sense. On a personal sense, if a person has, let's say a person decides, I want to become observant, and I want to start keeping kosher. I'd like to keep kosher, it's important. So the person who makes that statement that says that they want to keep kosher, right? So at first, it's not easy. You're used to going out to any restaurant you want, having all kinds of food, having great food, and costing less. You're used to it. Your friends that you associate with all eat on kosher, and it's difficult to do differently, right? After you make that commitment that you're going to keep kosher, and you do it for a little while, it suddenly becomes easier. Why it becomes easier? Because you're used to it. Right? Your friends that you start to associate with, many of them keep kosher. You know where the kosher restaurants are. You know which one has good food and which one doesn't have good food. It doesn't bother you that much. It's a bit more expensive. But you've already gotten to the point where keeping kosher on a basic level, you've accepted it. It's not a challenge for you anymore. You do it. But now you have another challenge. to keep kosher better or more. Like, you want to keep kosher at first, you're not going to mix milk and meat. And then you say, okay, I've accomplished that. Now I'm not going to eat unkosher meat, or I'm not going to eat in restaurants anymore. I'm not going to eat meat in restaurants anymore. Whatever it is that you make that commitment that you make is going to be your challenge. You'll beat that challenge, and then it won't bother you anymore. Like I know, even with myself, when I was growing up, I started to keep kosher when I was a teenager. It was a challenge. All my friends would go to McDonald's, and now I can't eat at McDonald's. So I started to trick myself. Well, fish is kosher, so I'll eat fish at McDonald's. So I would eat fish at McDonald's. And then I would say, no, I can't do that anymore. I have to get better. And I worked on myself, right, step by step by step. But every step I took, the step that I had accomplished became easy. We all know that. It happens all the time. It's the same thing with working out. It's the same thing with any commitment in your life, not just religious. You get used to it. That's because you've accomplished it. So now the Yetzer Hara is not going to challenge you on that, because you'll win. So he goes to the next thing. He's different all the time. Today he's going to challenge you on not eating milk and meat. Tomorrow he's going to challenge you because you've accomplished that. Now 2 weeks later he's going to challenge you on eating only kosher meat. You've accomplished that. 2 weeks later he's going to come back. He's going to challenge you on waiting between meat and milk, or not eating in unkosher restaurants. He's going to keep challenging you. As you get better at it, the challenge becomes higher, until you get to a point where you keep kosher 100%, and it's no big deal anymore, right? And now you want to start keeping Shabbos, and so that's where he starts up with you. But that's why he asked the angel, what's your name? I want to be able to tell my children how to fight the Yetzer Hara. And the guy says, I don't have a name. I don't have a name. I'm different all the time. In the 1800s, I was communism, or in the 1900s, I was communism. And every Jew who was poor wanted to become communist, because he could feed people. It was a wonderful idea. Right? Then it was socialism. Right? Then it was, becoming Christian. Whatever. There's different things, different times. There was the hippie movements, and there was pluralism, and there's all secularism that pulls you away. Today, it's just like back in the late 1960s into the early 70s. You know that there was the most used airport in the world. Right? It had more flights coming in and out at that time was in Phnom Penh, in Vietnam. It was the end of the Vietnam War, right? So all of a lot of planes going in and out of there. Today, nobody goes there, right? It changed. It was a big deal, because the times have changed. Of course, they're not planes going. There's no war there. Why would the Americans go there except somebody wants to go on vacation? They're going there for that reason. Right? The fact that the Americans stormed together with others the beaches of Normandy, right, at the end of World War II, right? So there was thousands of people on the beaches of Normandy. Today there's not thousands of people on the beaches of Normandy. It changes. Things change in the physical world. They change with us too. And what he's saying here is that when we struggle with our conscience against our desires, we have to realize that when we conquer the desire, and which is a good thing to do, and we become stronger, the desire becomes stronger. Now, the Gemara says a story that when the Mashiach comes, God will shech to the Yetzer Hara. He'll slaughter the Yetzer Hara. And it's a metaphor, of course. And it says that and he'll show it to the righteous people, and he'll show it to the bad people, the failures. And the righteous people will cry, and the failures will cry. And why are you crying? He killed the Yetzer Hara, right? Life is going to be great. There's no, because the righteous people look at the Yetzer Hara and they say, this mountain, and I climbed it. Look at that, how big that Yetzer Hara is, and I beat it. It's a giant mountain, and I beat it. Why? Because a person who's righteous, who works on themselves, they have a struggle, and they accomplish it, they get stronger, they get stronger, they get stronger, but it has to be balanced. So the Yetzer Hara gets stronger and stronger and stronger with you. So you're always balanced. So by the time you're at the end of your life, you've accomplished so much that you are a giant. Right? You're a spiritual giant. So is your Yetzer Hara. And you can go to God and you say, look at that giant Yetzer Hara. It's the highest thing in the world. And I conquered it. Right? A person who's a failure, their Yetzer Hara says that they look at it and they say, and they cry, and they say, this shoestring, this little shoestring, I couldn't jump over it. And how sad they become. Because they didn't challenge the Yetzer Hara. So whenever the Yetzer Hara would say, what are you keeping kosher for? You're hungry now. Don't wait till you get to the kosher restaurant. Just go over here. Nobody will know. And you do it. Now, the Yetzer Hara won, doesn't have to try very hard. He knows he can beat you. So he doesn't get very big. And you also don't get very big because you keep failing. So you keep getting smaller and smaller, and the Yetzer Hara gets smaller and smaller. So at the end, if you didn't beat your Yetzer Hara, you look at it and you say, oh my God, look at this. I couldn't beat it. It was so small, and I couldn't even beat that. And I should have been able to, right?
Yetzer Hara is more than your animal part, your animal side. Like the Yetzer Hara, as I understand, is who takes away Shalom Bayit, for instance, or it's more than just your animal part.
What it is it doesn't take away anything. It challenges you. For instance, there's only two people who can take away Shalom Bayit in your house, you and your husband. And that's it. The Yetzer Hara doesn't do it. What happens is your husband comes in from work one day and he's in a bad mood. Something happened at work and it's bothering him. And he doesn't control himself well, and he gets angry at the family. So what do? You can say, how dare you come home and treat the family this way? Right? And now the Shalom Bayit is gone. Right? Or you can say to yourself, it's not a normal thing. It doesn't usually happen. He had a hard day. Let's just overlook it, and let's be really nice to him, and he'll get in a good mood. So that means you'll have Shalom Bayit. Right? So that means you beat the Yetzer Hara. The Yetzer Hara doesn't take away. What's easier to do? What's easier to do is to get angry at your husband and say, how can you come into our house and treat us like this? Did I give you trouble at work? Did the kids give you trouble at work? No. So then why are you acting like this? Right? That's easier to do. But your Shalom Bayit is gone. So it's not your Yetzer Hara that takes it away. It's you who take it away. Because you let your Yetzer Hara beat you. Right? That's how it works. Your Yetzer Hara is inside of us. It's not literally an animal, right? It's not literally telling you what I said. The idea is the Yetzer Hara wants what it wants, and it wants it now. Whatever that is. And that's you. It's me. We all have a Yetzer Hara. So if I'm hungry, I want to eat now. Right? And I want to eat what I want to eat. So I want to eat ice cream every day, 3 times a day. Because I want it, it's fast, it's cheap, it's easy, and it tastes good. That's what I want, 3 times a day. So if I go and do that, I'm going to kill myself. Right? I'm going to kill myself. That means I'm giving in to my Yetzer Hara. My Yetzer Hara wants me to do that. It wants me to hurt myself. So if instead I say, no, I'm going to take the extra 5 minutes. I'm going to go home. I'm going to make a salad, or I'm going to have a normal meal. And it doesn't taste as good, and it's more effort, and it's more expensive, but it's the right thing. So then I beat the Yetzer Hara. Right? That's what happened. I beat it. So it can't fight me in that area. It'll now, as I go to the next level, it'll come with me to the next level. It'll challenge me again. So that's why Yaakov says to him, tell me your name. And he doesn't tell him his name. That's the answer. The answer is, I don't have a name. I am whoever it is that's challenging you. And I'm different all the time, and I'm different for different people. Because I'm you. I'm inside of you.